The highly anticipated sequel to Helldivers is finally here, and if you're a PC player then you've probably paid attention to the Steam reviews. And for the first 24 hours, it was pretty mixed, with a lot of valid issues, but with that being said, I'm here to tell you why this game is worth every single goddamn penny. A game like this really comes down to the combat. Is it enjoyable to kill these bugs over and over and over again? And the answer to that is yeah. Not only is it entertaining to use multiple different primary and secondary weapons with their own strengths and weaknesses, but being able to use multiple different abilities ranging from supporting your team to absolutely fucking obliterating an entire part of the map is just straight up mindless fun. And speaking of mindless fun, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the co-op aspect of this game is how everything is so powerful that the success of a lot of the missions doesn't necessarily completely rely on your ability to coordinate with your teammates, depending on the difficulty, of course. One of the things that I hate so much about some other co-ops is that if you don't have any friends to play with and you're just stuck with randoms, it can make it needlessly difficult and kind of frustrating to even attempt to play. And I can safely say that Helldivers 2, for the most part, doesn't have these problems. And strangely enough, for a few matches, I actually enjoyed my time with randoms. But the ideal experience is obviously playing with friends, as there are just some missions and especially some difficulties where you need to work closely with your other teammates. And one thing that I really like about this game is that prior to missions, each player can pick a specific loadout and abilities to optimize an effective strategy. And as I said previously, a lot of this shit is already very powerful in the hands of 4 randoms, who for the most part barely communicate with you or each other. But in the hands of a fully cohesive team with a plan in place, it really brings out the full potential of these mechanics. Honestly, for the gameplay, I don't really have a lot of criticisms besides some very minor nitpicks. Like for example, having to enter a whole goddamn Tekken combo just to call an evac. That's slightly a little much. Or having some objectives that are just less fun than others, like putting up a few flags around some areas and then calling it a day. Especially when you're just watching it slowly go up after clearing out all the enemies, it isn't the most engaging thing. Albeit, I did have the chance to show my patriotism and salute the flag with my other comrades. The attention to details is so important in gaming. I remember very vividly how Left 4 Dead 2 had such unique gore mechanics, to the point where it was so satisfying to play just because there were so many different ways to kill a zombie. Now, I wouldn't put Helldivers 2 on that level, which is no insult to the game. Left 4 Dead 2 is just a fucking classic. But the reason why I mention this is because the game does such an amazing job on the small things. I can't even count how many times I decapitated one of these bugs only for the goddamn thing to keep charging at me, or how many times I blew them to hell and I saw their bodies, guts, and or limbs flying through the air. It does a really good job immersing you into the battle, and their attention to detail is not only regarding the combat, it is much more than just that, like being drenched in bug blood or having explosions actually affect the terrain, or this thing, like they didn't even have to add this. And all of this on its own wouldn't mean much, but adding them together really has an impact on the experience. And I also think the design of the planets do a really good job at this too. While it's not crazy, it doesn't feel empty. There are tons of things that will keep you on your toes. Like for example, these harmless plants, or at least that's what I thought before fucking stepping on it. What the fuck was that? And the last thing I want to quickly mention, which might be my favorite part about the immersion of the game, is the cheesy bits of dialogue each character gets. I know this is a really obvious comparison that everyone is making, but it does really give me Starship Trooper vibes. And again, obviously I think this was intentional by the developers. My only real nitpick for this section is that they didn't add more unique dialogue. the bane of every AAA game's existence, and apparently Helldivers too. And well, I haven't had a bad time with the performance. I've gotten one crash and a few goofy glitches that really didn't break the game, but besides that, I was pretty much good. In comparison to a lot of the other games I played in the previous year, both good and bad, when it comes to the performance of Helldivers 2, it's one of the more polished games I've played in regards to bugs, glitches, crashes, etc, etc. But I really want to stress this to you, the viewer. This is my personal experience, and I can only really give you my opinion on things that happened to me. It seems like this varies from player to player, as there are plenty of other people struggling to play this game, with some even resorting to refunding it, which would be my number one advice to you if you are someone who's experiencing issues in the first 2 hours of your playthrough. Plus, I have no goddamn clue on the refund options with Sony, so if you're a PlayStation player having some trouble, then you might just be screwed. I'll make this quick since it's simple. Besides the performance issues, Helldivers 2 is just flat out fun. And at $40 for what you get, there isn't much of a reason not to buy it, especially if you're a huge fan of the co-op genre. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking, subscribing, and comment below what I should do next. I'll do animes, shows, movies, games, whatever. But again, thank you so much for watching.